Idols and groups having sudden declines in popularity to the point where they disappear from the mainstream spaces always become huge talking points in the K-pop sphere, and some of them even leave lasting effects that are impossible to come back from. The decline of RIIZE has been a slow but very steady unraveling, which all started with ex-member Seunghan's controversy and has since spiraled into a full-scale divide within the fandom in a way that very few boy groups have ever experienced so early in their careers. What makes the situation striking is not just the scandal itself, but the way it fundamentally destabilized the group's image, revenue streams, and fanbase structure, leaving RIIZE in a position far more fragile than anyone would have predicted only months prior. The spark that ignited everything was back when Seunghan was originally announced to be returning to RIIZE on October 11, 2024, after months of controversy. Even though opinions were mixed, the mood seemed cautiously optimistic, with many fans ready to welcome him back, and while others were hesitant, there was at least an expectation that SM Entertainment had weighed the situation carefully before making such a decision. However, just 2 days later, SM abruptly did a full reversal and announced that Seunghan would be leaving the group on his own volition. Their reasoning was that they had reconsidered the situation and realized that the decision to return Seunghan to the group was actually hurting people. However, to most of those watching from the sidelines, the whole situation seemed extremely inconsistent and deeply confusing. The fandom split instantly after the decision was made, with those opposing Seunghan's return mobilizing and organizing protests at the company building with flower wreaths lined up like silent demands. Messages reading "RIIZE is 6, Hong Seunghan out, and leave the group" filled the area to the point where the volume of wreaths was so overwhelming that the delivery service had to temporarily stop taking requests altogether. This alone already proved that the situation was bigger than a typical idol controversy, shocking even non-fans who had just heard about the situation in passing. But things only got worse when those on the opposite side of the sentiment started rallying together. International fans, and fans from other fandoms who sympathized with Seunghan, launched a massive boycott not against Seunghan, but against RIIZE itself. They unfollowed the group en masse across Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, and in a single day, RIIZE lost over 168,000 followers. Their Instagram dropped by more than 110,000, their Twitter lost 63,000, and TikTok shed 83,000. These numbers were not typical fluctuations, and it was very clear that these were extremely targeted movements to show that people were prepared to walk away from the group if Seunghan wasn't brought to justice. There were even several hashtags trending online to bring attention to the situation, such as "Bring Back Seunghan." As we have seen in the past, fans aim to tank the group's visibility, sabotage their engagement metrics, and make RIIZE's decline impossible for SM to ignore, as fans attempted to make it clear that if Seunghan goes, so do they. As the boycott grew, the consequences continued to hit the group harder, and even RIIZE's brand reputation ranking, a major indicator of their public presence and commercial value, collapsed. Throughout 2024, they had remained consistently high on the lists, hovering near the top due to their promotions, their September repackage album, and their high-profile ambassadorship with National Geographic. But after the scandal towards the end of the year, their ranking dropped from 11 to 35, a massive plunge of over 20 spots into a massive freefall. For a rookie group still establishing its identity and longevity in the industry, this kind of reputational collapse is dangerous, especially as advertisers and broadcast companies notice these things even better than casual fans. A group whose fandom is actively sabotaging its own metrics becomes a risky investment, and RIIZE suddenly became one of those cases where the controversy suddenly overshadowed their music and star power entirely. Fans even openly celebrated the rankings drop, which was almost unheard of. Comments like, "This shows that the boycott is working," and "This is the first time, I'm so happy my fave group is not on this list," captured just how bitterly divided the fandom had become. Many boycotters openly blamed company management, and some even RIIZE's remaining members, insisting that their silence or compliance contributed to Seunghan's departure. Some believed the group should have defended him, while others felt Seunghan was wronged by internal politics. The specifics varied, but either way, it was clear that RIIZE's fandom fractured in a way that could perhaps never heal. Ultimately, this had a massive domino effect for the group as their momentum, which previously seemed unstoppable, seemed to come to a halt. Engagement dropped, and general public interest faded as people began associating RIIZE not with their rise, but with the controversy that had brought them down. For newer groups, reputation is perhaps the most important thing they can have, and RIIZE's was suddenly unstable and tainted by a controversy that refused to fade. Part of the group's downfall also lies in the timing. thing. When a group is still early in its career, they haven't built the kind of long-term loyalty that allows it to withstand scandal. Groups like EXO, Big Bang, or BTS survived internal issues because they already had legions of dedicated fans committed to seeing them through anything. RIIZE simply didn't have that yet, and with a fandom so young and still forming, it was very easy for a large group of it to use their engagement as leverage, and once the boycott began, the group didn't have enough stability or history to counter its effects. The deeper problem is that RIIZE's situation became bigger than Seunghan, as it also became about accountability from companies and all the ways in which idols are treated unfairly in the industry. Now, even as time passes, the group continues struggling to recover from the damage. Even now, non-fans often bring up the scandal before anything else, many admitting they don't really listen to RIIZE anymore because the whole situation left such a sour impression. The boys weren't personally at fault, but it's clear that the dark moments of what happened still cling to them despite how little they were able to address any of it. A year later, RIIZE continues to struggle breaking back into the mainstream, and it can't be said that their music is at fault. Fans who still support the group see this as deeply unfair, as they've spoken up again and again about how exhausting it is to see RIIZE dragged into conversations that no longer reflect where the boys are now. One fan wrote that she often watches videos where people insult the member for expressing gratitude to the company and even call them puppets of the company. The frustration amongst many fans lies in seeing others ignore how special the group is and how so many still seem to treat them as symbols of a controversy they didn't cause and have no power to change. This sentiment comes up repeatedly. Fans are tired of the backhanded compliments that praise older songs like Memories or Talk Saxy while disregarding newer ones like Love 119, Boom Boom Bass, or even their first full album, Odyssey, as if anything beyond the viral hits of the past doesn't deserve attention. But the saddest reaction fans highlighted was the recurring comment that RIIZE should just disband. Many fans argue that continuing to romanticize the 2023 era with the 7 members feels insulting to both RIIZE and Seunghan because in doing so, people freeze the group in a hypothetical past rather than acknowledging their growth or Seunghan's own path forward with his solo debut. But not everyone agrees with that perspective, as some point out that if non-fans are expected to move on, then fans need to move on too. That the grief over OT7 makes sense, but RIIZE today is a 6-member group with a different energy, and it's unavoidable that the loss altered something fundamental. Others especially emphasize that this kind of lingering shadow is not unusual in K-pop at all. Groups that lose members rarely escape the long-term emotional imprint of that moment, even more so when handled poorly. One commenter mentioned Girls' Generation and Jessica's departure, pointing out that even 11 years later, fans still argue, speculate, and reopen old wounds. When companies fail to provide closure, the fandom carries the unresolved tension indefinitely, and it's not something that fans can expect anyone to be able to move on from. The difference with RIIZE is that the member who left wasn't rejected by the general public, he was increasingly supported by them. Many non-fans felt sympathy for Seunghan after seeing the boycotts, the protests, and the confusion surrounding SM's decision-making. This created an unusual emotional dynamic as support for Seunghan became intertwined with disengagement from RIIZE, leaving the remaining members in an impossible position where their success felt like a betrayal to some observers. And then to make matters worse, parts of their own fandom participated in the boycott, creating a situation where new fans felt hesitant to join. Supporting RIIZE became tangled with the optics of supporting a company that many believed mistreated one of its trainees. Yet even in the middle of this downturn, RIIZE has been pushing forward quietly, consistently. And perhaps the most interesting aspect is that they've addressed these emotional repercussions subtly through their music, particularly on their first songs after the scandal. In interviews, the members spoke about how their newer tracks reflect their changing relationship with fame. Anton explained that their earlier music was about rising and chasing dreams, but now they're exploring the emotions that come after fame arrives, the struggles, the insecurities, and the pressure to keep creating while staying true to themselves. Their newest tracks delve into themes of self-reflection, exhaustion, and the cost of being visible in the spotlight. The song Fame, with lines like, "All this fake fame, maybe I don't need it," and "Shout loud, cry, tears, fear, pain, but keep going," raised eyebrows amongst listeners as many started to question whether they felt like being in the group had also become too much for the members after the scandal that happened. But the boys clarified that the lyrics didn't mean they disliked the fame, they simply meant that fame alone doesn't define their identity and that there's much more to them after everything they've been through. So he emphasized that, as artists, fame is necessary, but becoming a great artist requires more than public attention. It requires grounding, connection, and self-respect. Anton also interpreted some lyrics as a personal journey, explaining that a line like "running towards you" refers not to fans or fame, but to a higher version of himself. What's striking about these reflections is how honest they are for idols so early in their careers. In many ways, their perspective mirrors exactly what their current situation demands, as they know they cannot rely on fame alone when it's so easy for it to be taken away, as seen in the past. Now, it seems like they are learning to reframe their identity not as victims of circumstances or as symbols of a fractured fandom, but as musicians trying to grow despite the noise around them. This quieter, more thoughtful RIIZE seems to be different from the explosive rookie group that debuted with incredible momentum. But this version is perhaps more mature, more self-aware, and more stable in ways fame cannot measure. And while their mainstream breakthrough may still feel out of reach, they are building something steady that allows them to keep moving forward even when the world seems hesitant to welcome them back. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more coverage of K-pop's most dramatic moments, and make sure to leave your opinion on the topic in the comments down below. That was just one group's fall from grace, but individual legends faced even harsher turns, and one of the most iconic female idols experienced a shocking shift in public support. Hyuna used to be one of the most loved idols in the industry, but this all changed after she revealed her newest relationship. But why was this enough for the public to change their opinion of her and pretty much boycott everything she's doing? Being in the industry ever since she was a teenager, Hyuna has had time and space to build a legacy in the K-pop industry. She started by debuting in Wonder Girls, then in 4 Minute, and finally started her career as a soloist under Cube Entertainment. It was then that she started building her image of a confident woman who didn't care about what others thought of her and who fully embraced her body and who she was. She did things that other female K-pop idols barely did. She would do controversial and shocking concepts and choreographies. She was bold and didn't let the hate comments get to her. Because of this, she has been dealing with all kinds of shaming, misogynistic comments and terms, and even harassment. This turned her into some kind of a feminist icon in the eyes of her international fans, as after all, she had been exploited and shoved into the spotlight ever since she was a child. She had embraced all of this and had empowered herself through her concepts, which in turn had empowered other women. Not only that, but it seemed like she wanted to protect the younger idols as well, since she didn't want them to go through the same things she did. But in hindsight, Hyuna has never said that she's a feminist or actually done any activism when it came to women's rights. As a commenter put it best, it's true that women looked up to her, appreciated her art, attitude, style, bold decisions in life, and her friendships with other women, but that alone didn't mean that she was a feminist. Linking idols to social movements they haven't directly supported themselves puts them on a pedestal, and in the end, they might not live up to the standards. And truth be told, this is basically what happened to Hyuna. On January 18th, Hyuna updated her personal Instagram with a picture in which she can be seen walking down the beach hand in hand with Highlight's former member Yong Jun-young. At first, fans speculated that the post might be a hint towards a future collaboration, but Hyuna cleared those rumors pretty fast by including an emoji of a couple in the caption. The news was shocking, to say the least. Not the fact that she was dating, of course. She had gotten significant support when she revealed that she was in a relationship with Dawn in 2016, but Jun-young was quite a controversial figure in the industry, which sparked a heated debate online. To explain everything, we need to go back to 2019 when the police were looking into the Burning Sun case and found a chat room on KakaoTalk in which Seungri and some other big investors were arranging for inappropriate services. But the main person in charge was Jong Jun-young, who shared molka videos of women directly in the chat. SBS News reported that Jun-young and the other participants in the chat room shared non-consensual videos of women dating back in late 2015. The members of the group chat shared different clips and pictures, with Jun-young posting hidden footage of other women in the group chat for about 10 months. One of them was Hyuna's boyfriend. He wasn't in the group chat, but there's proof that Jun-young sent Jun-young a video in which he's seen engaging physically with a woman. Of course, the woman wasn't aware that she was being filmed or that the video was being shared with anyone else. Not only wasn't Jun-young disturbed by it all, but he also made some very inappropriate comments about it. When the whole thing was reported, Jun-young, along with his agency, denied everything, but they couldn't hide from the truth for long. He released a statement on his own saying that he had misinformed the agency about his involvement with Jong Jun-young, which is why they took his side. The truth was that in his KakaoTalk messages with Jun-young, the two had talked after getting drunk together the night before. The next day, Jun-young asked Jun-young how he was doing, to which the latter responded by telling him that he got caught sending molka videos to someone else, and instead of calling out his friend and maybe even reporting him to the police, Jun-young replied with, "You got caught by her? In his statement, he also said, "I did not receive a video at the time, but I did receive a video at a different instance. In addition, I participated in inappropriate conversations regarding it." He also acknowledges that his actions were immoral and that he did something wrong but still left both Highlight and his company. Afterward, he disappeared for a while because nobody wanted to be associated with him in public. The other Highlight members act like he doesn't exist to this day. Meanwhile, his ex-girlfriend, the late Goo Hara, not only distanced herself from him but had also gone as far as to reach out to the reporter who exposed the group chat on her own to show support and offer help, but more on that later. So, for an idol as beloved as Hyuna to date, someone who didn't think that watching illegally taken videos of women was a big deal came as a big shock to people. We discussed before that even though Hyuna didn't live up to the feminist label that was given to her, people thought that she still had the decency to not date someone like Junyoung. In general, everyone seemed disappointed. The public and the hardcore fans had already dropped people who were involved in the Burning Sun in any way, yet Hyuna was associating with Junyoung publicly and even boasting about dating him, going as far as to ask fans to please look at our relationship prettily. This pissed a lot of fans off to the point that they started dropping her and condemning her actions. When the news broke about Junyoung's relationship, Hyuna's biggest fan pages, both in Korea and overseas, shut down. She also lost a lot of followers, including some of her closest friends in the industry. One of them was Miss A's former member Jia, who used to be very close to Hyuna prior to this. 2AM's Jo Kwon also unfollowed her, but later said they were still on good terms. It was mostly confusing why Hyuna would risk her reputation and even her career just to go public with her relationship. Despite the many controversies in her career, she was still loved in the K-pop communities and by netizens and received a lot of support. Even if she wanted to be with Junyoung, she could have done so in private. After all, he was the only one benefiting from the relationship going public, which is also why he was so quick to confirm it in the first place. He has also used all the noise around the dating news to announce the release of his new album, his first release in 3 years. People thought it was suspicious that he had announced his retirement in 2019, yet he was so ready to come back after the dating news with Hyuna broke out. Another icky part about their relationship is related to Goo Hara. As we mentioned, Goo Hara used to date Junyoung, with their relationship being confirmed back in June of 2011. The two split in 2013, with the agencies explaining that they couldn't keep their relationship due to their busy schedules. However, since the two had unfollowed each other on Twitter after the breakup, it was said that something more was going on that we didn't know about. Fast forward to 2019, when reporter Kang Kyung-yoon courageously reported on Jang Junyoung's chat room scandal. At the time, Hara was also dealing with a legal case regarding her ex-boyfriend, who threatened to release a private and inappropriate video of the two, which was taken when the two were together. Even with her own problems, she contacted reporter Kang Kyung-yoon to find out how she could assist in exposing the truth about the chat room scandal. She wanted to support other women who were going through similar things as her. The reporter said, "Since she was also a victim, she told me that she couldn't help but reach out to me. She showed so much motivation to actively fight with the case against Jang Junyoung." Kang Kyung-yoon said that Goo Hara played a significant role in bringing down the people involved in the chat room, which is praiseworthy. Hyuna didn't have a close relationship with Hara, but they used to be friends at some point. Hyuna was friends with Hara at the time that she was dating Junyoung and was aware of everything she went through and everything that Junyoung did, yet she got into a relationship with him. It basically means that not only does she not care about the victims involved, but also doesn't care about betraying the memory of Hara, which has made the news even more bitter to fans. So while Goo Hara went out of her way to help catch people like Junyoung, Hyuna talks about dating him publicly. In fact, she knows that her relationship would be looked down upon, and here's how we know. She didn't tell her agency before announcing that the two were dating, and she ended up deleting the "please look at our relationship prettily" comment that got so much backlash. It's funny that her "I don't care about anything" attitude, which used to have people admiring her, is now the reason that she's despised. Since the announcement, she's been posting on social media as if nothing happened, which is yet another thing why K-pop fans are so over her. Not only that, but she has also warned legal action against people spreading false rumors against her. On April 3rd at Area, her agency claimed that Hyuna had been a victim of malicious posts, false information, slander, defamation, and even inappropriate harassment. The agency said that they wouldn't tolerate this kind of behavior against their artists, which is why they were pursuing legal action against the people who were responsible. She has also announced a comeback, which wasn't welcomed by the public or even people who once enjoyed listening to her. Sure, it would be exciting to see how her career would prosper in the management of a new company, but she has lost a good chunk of her audience after associating herself publicly with Junyoung. When a solo star can fall this hard, it raises a terrifying question. What happens when an entire group loses the trust of fans almost overnight? KISS of Life had been steadily rising as one of the most successful groups of K-pop's fifth generation, with each comeback bringing in more fans and their sales and streaming numbers continuously increasing. However, that momentum took a sudden turn after Julie's birthday livestream, which led many fans to withdraw their support, leaving the group's future uncertain and sparking discussions about where they go from here. From the start, KISS of Life made it clear that they were creating their own path, not just following trends. Even before their official debut, they took an unconventional approach by introducing each member through solo releases, allowing their individuality to shine before coming together for their self-titled mini-album. The members themselves also attracted plenty of interest. Natty had already gained recognition from competing on 16, the survival show that launched twice, and Idol School, and though she didn't make the final lineup, she later debuted as a soloist. Julie spent 3 years training under the Black label before moving to S2 Entertainment, while Belle, the daughter of 90s singer Shim Shin, had already made a name for herself in the industry by writing songs for artists like Le Seraphim, Purple Kiss, and Mion. She was also credited for background vocals on tracks like Le Seraphim's Unforgiven and Mark's Child, both of which drew significant attention. Coming from a smaller company, S2 Entertainment, they weren't expected to make a big impact, but they quickly proved otherwise. Though their fusion of R&B and Western influences made them less mainstream in Korea at first, they gained massive traction internationally. Their album sales reflected this growing buzz. What started as 759 copies on day one skyrocketed to over 25,000, an unexpected leap for a rookie group. However, their debut wasn't without its share of controversy. Just weeks after they hit the stage, an old clip of Julie resurfaced, causing an uproar online. In the video, she was seen performing B.O.B's 2012 song Strange Clouds and rapping along to the N-word, sparking widespread criticism. Given that she was born and raised in Hawaii, many argued that she was fully aware of the word's offensive nature and that there was no excuse for using it. The backlash was swift and intense, leaving Julie with no choice but to address the situation. On July 22, 2023, she posted an apology on Twitter explaining that she hadn't paid close attention to the lyrics while singing the cover and deeply regretted her mistake. She went on to say, "This incident made me realize how my careless actions can cause harm to many people, and during my 6 years of training period, I educated myself and matured." Julie also seemed determined to be careful and thoughtful in the future, promising not to repeat the same mistake. In the end, she apologized to those hurt by her actions, vowing to improve and continue growing. Her apology was generally well received, with many appreciating her personal acknowledgement of the issue. Some fans felt it would have been better if the apology had come before her debut, but they were still glad she addressed it. While the scandal resurfaced occasionally, it didn't seem to significantly affect KISS of Life's growing popularity. As they continued to develop their sound, KISS of Life leaned more into R&B and hip-hop, further refining their unique style. Their tracks Nobody Knows and Midas Touch built on the success of Natty's solo hit Sugarcoat, which had already proven that these genres fit the group perfectly. By 2024, individual members began gaining recognition beyond the group. Natty joined forces with Jay Park on Taxi Blur, while Julie had a standout moment when she was featured on Twice's Nyeon's solo album NA. These collaborations not only showcased their individual talents, but also helped bring more eyes to the group. Additionally, their recent releases, Sticky and Igloo, along with their viral dance covers on TikTok, skyrocketed them to stardom, solidifying their place as one of the most adored groups of the generation. This is why fans were ecstatic to hear that they would have their next comeback in June, especially since it had been months since their last release, Lose Yourself, in October. Comments from K-pop fans said things like, "Summer 2025 will be theirs," and they're taking that Summer Queen's title very seriously. However, things took a turn on the day of Julie's birthday livestream, but even before it started, fans were already feeling a bit uneasy. The group had shared an e-invitation on social media a few hours prior to the event, which raised concerns right away. The dress code was listed as old school hip-hop, a choice that didn't sit well with many, given K-pop's long history of cultural insensitivity. Adding to the tension, Belle had posted something cryptic just days before, making fans even more wary about what was to come. She had sent a message on the fan platform Bubble writing, "Please look forward to Julie Unnie's birthday content too, and promise you won't leave the fandom after watching it." At first, fans weren't sure what to make of Belle's vague post. Some assumed she was joking, while others thought she might have been exaggerating. But when the livestream happened on April 2nd, the reality was far worse than anyone expected. The members appeared wearing outfits and hairstyles that drew heavily from Black culture, including cornrows, bantu knots, oversized gold chains, and hats. As if that wasn't bad enough, they exaggerated their mannerisms, spoke in a way that mocked Black people, and even gave Belle the nickname Lil Taco Bell. Throughout the entire livestream, they didn't seem to realize or care how offensive their actions were, making no effort to stop or reconsider. Given this, the backlash was immediate, with both fans and non-fans calling them out for being disrespectful and taking things too far. A Twitter user wrote, "They would be nothing without black people. Their music is nothing but a copy of what our people have already created hits with. For them to get on live and make a mockery of us for their tens of thousands of fans to laugh at is nasty." Many also argued that there was no excuse for their actions, or it couldn't even be said that they didn't know any better. Belle's bubble message alone suggested they were fully aware the livestream would spark backlash. She even asked fans not to leave the fandom because of it. Additionally, as mentioned, Julie had already faced criticism for saying the N-word and publicly apologized. And given that she grew up in Hawaii until she was 13, it was hard to believe she didn't understand the weight of her actions. Belle was also born in the US, making it even more unreasonable to assume ignorance played a role in what they did. Another user wrote, "I agree Kiss of Life should have known better, but have we considered that they did in fact know better and just don't care?" After everything unfolded, fans flooded the company with emails urging both the agency and the members to take responsibility and apologize. In a widely shared email template, the fans acknowledged that the group likely hadn't intended to be offensive, but still described the live stream as tone-deaf, inappropriate, and ignorant. They emphasized that even if the stereotypes were used unintentionally, they still carried harmful consequences that could damage the group's reputation. The message concluded with a clear demand for the members to issue a sincere apology and for all traces of the live stream to be removed. The apology the fans had been asking for came just a day later. On April 3rd, the company deleted the live stream from all platforms and released a statement claiming they never meant to offend anyone and that the live stream was meant to celebrate hip-hop culture, which has heavily influenced Kiss of Life's music. They admitted they had failed to recognize the negative cultural implications and promised to be more mindful when referencing other cultures in the future. The statement ended by reassuring fans that the live stream had been permanently removed. However, the apology only made things worse. Fans immediately disliked the fact that it was the company speaking, not the members themselves, which made it seem like an attempt to shield them from responsibility rather than an expression of genuine remorse. The wording also frustrated many. Rather than directly acknowledging the communities affected, the statement vaguely referred to certain races and the culture, avoiding any real accountability. One particular line, "We apologize for our shortcomings in recognizing the negative cultural implications that our content would be perceived," stood out as it seemed to shift the blame onto viewers for taking offense rather than admitting fault. Some speculated that this was all a marketing stunt, given that their comeback was announced on the same day as the live stream, but if that was the plan, it backfired spectacularly as they ended up driving fans away, with many publicly declaring they could no longer support the group. So while Kiss of Life were once seen as a group destined for success, many are now questioning what lies ahead for them. Some believe this controversy won't have a lasting impact, arguing that other idols and groups have done worse yet still maintain strong careers. They point out that history has shown time and again that certain fans will overlook insensitivity and cultural mockery when it comes to their favorite artists. However, others think this will leave a permanent mark. While disbandment seems out of the question, regaining the level of support they once had may be impossible. Unlike some groups with strong domestic followings, Kiss of Life relied heavily on their international fan base as their popularity soared with every viral hit and their members were widely adored by fans and non-fans. But now, many of those same fans are turning away, unwilling to support a group that took so much inspiration from Black culture only to mock it in return. Fan accounts dedicated to the group have already shut down, denouncing their actions, while others are shifting their attention to different artists. And it wasn't just one group. Another act went from constant hype to losing their core fan base in record time. For months, NJZ had the public's backing as they challenged HYBE alongside Min Hee-jin. Fans who believe in protecting idols over corporations rallied behind them, just as they had in past cases like Luna's and Omega X's. Despite the media favoring HYBE, NJZ supporters stayed loyal. However, after the court hearing on March 7th, public opinion took a sharp turn, and many began to reconsider their stance. Nearly 4 months after NJZ's press conference, in which they declared they had terminated their contracts, the court issued a ruling on March 21st, siding against the group and putting a halt to any outside work for them unless a future trial could potentially reverse their contracts. To summarize the court ruling, let's start with one of NJZ's key claims, which was that Min Hee-jin's removal as CEO caused serious instability. The court dismissed this, stating ADOR had the authority to make business decisions and that Min Hee-jin's role wasn't a contractual necessity. NJZ also pointed to ADOR's strained relationship with Dolphiners as a reason for contract termination, but the court ruled that Dolphiners was irrelevant to the case and that any conflicts with with them wouldn't justify breaking the contract. Another argument was that ADOR abandoned them after Min Hee-jin's departure, but the court countered that NJZ's own attempt to walk away had also disrupted management. When asked what circumstances would allow them to end their contracts, the court made it clear there were none. According to the court's decision, ADOR had invested significantly in NewJeans from their trainee days and had met their contractual responsibilities. Letting NJZ leave after just 2 years would result in major financial losses for the company. Following the ruling, opinions online were mixed. Some people felt upset, believing the girls should be allowed to leave what they saw as a toxic and harmful environment. A Twitter user wrote, "Stand celebrating the mistreatment and exploitation of artists who are minors as if their favorite idols are not also stuck in this exploitative idol industry." Not everyone shared the same view as a lot of people, including many Korean netizens, backed the court's decision. They criticized NJZ for acting emotionally and prioritizing feelings over the law. Most comments on online forums echoed the same point. It was clear from the start that ADOR would win because NJZ's case wasn't strong enough to justify ending the contract. One netizen commented, "The court's right though, you can't just throw a tantrum and say you want to leave so that cancels the contract. That's the whole point of a contract." Another person noted that other idols aren't staying because of love for their companies. They understand the binding nature of their agreements, stressing that the law should always take priority. Opinions got even more divided once NJZ released their statement after the ruling. In an Instagram post shared the same day, they stated that they accepted the decision but felt it didn't fully capture how much trust had been broken by ADOR. They also went on to criticize the rushed injunction process, which they claimed didn't give them enough time to properly present their case. NJZ then said that ADOR and HYBE had all the necessary information, while they were left to find details on their own, and that many people were too scared to help them due to fear of retaliation. Despite the ruling, NJZ made it clear they weren't backing down, saying they planned to fight the decision by submitting more evidence and presenting new legal arguments. They reiterated that they had honored their contracts, and it was ADOR and HYBE who had mistreated them, making it impossible to continue their work together. They emphasized that the injunction was just a temporary decision, and the real legal battle would take place at the upcoming hearing on April 3rd, where they hope to present a stronger case with more legal support. In the end, they wrote, "As we have stated before, regardless of any financial matters, we can no longer remain with a management that has disrespected our identities and undermined our achievements. The reason we are pursuing this legal action is to protect our dignity and rights." The statement only seemed to fuel more backlash against NJZ, as many people pushed back on several points they made. For instance, some argued that NJZ had no right to claim they didn't have enough time to present the facts in court. They pointed out that the conflict between HYBE and Min Hee-jin's side had been ongoing for a year, NJZ's live stream was in September, and they announced their contract termination in November. In their view, NJZ had plenty of time to prepare for the injunction, especially given they were facing a major corporation. Others took issue with NJZ's argument that the court didn't fully consider the breakdown of trust with ADOR, claiming it was impossible to support that claim since it was the only reason the group presented. One user wrote, "I'm sure they took it into account since that's like the only argument y'all gave. There's only so much weight they can put into that." Then, ADOR released a statement expressing their intent to communicate with NJZ and resolve the situation through open dialogue. They reaffirmed their role as the group's agency and promised full support moving forward. ADOR also confirmed that the ComplexCon performance would proceed as planned, under the NewJeans name backed by ADOR. ADOR also stated that they will dispatch staff to Hong Kong to support the group's performance under the name NewJeans rather than NJZ. Surprisingly, many backed this decision, saying that the company was doing the right thing. Comments on online forums said, "The employees must be annoyed, and ADOR is treating them well." Even the KOO, which has always supported NJZ, seems to be shifting its stance. On Pan, while the top comments might be influenced, the upvote and downvote numbers tell a different story, as the criticism of NJZ clearly outweighed the support. While it's easy to manipulate comments, it's much harder to fake the upvote and downvote counts, as attempts to upvote with multiple accounts are quickly blocked. But what's with the turn in opinion? For many Korean netizens who had supported NJZ, the court's ruling against them was enough to change their stance. In Korea, there's a strong belief in following the law, so when the court dismissed all of NJZ's arguments, most people shifted their support to ADOR and the legal system. They saw NJZ's actions as a failure to honor their contracts, which they believed was also a failure to respect the law. As a commenter explained, "I think it's because how it looks like rich kids trying to go above the law when average citizen can't." On the other hand, K-pop fans who had stood by NJZ in their fight against HYBE and ADOR were expecting them to bring strong evidence and fresh arguments to the court. But when the hearing took place, NJZ stuck to the same claims they had been making all along. For many, this was frustrating. To them, not only did they fail to present anything new, but they also struggled to back up some of their original statements. One user questioned, "Who goes to court to unilaterally terminate a contract based on vibes, and he said, she said, just find a company willing to pay your termination fee and call it a day. Some also brought up KOOKIELIT as a reason not to support the NJZ members. As you may know, according to Min Hee-jin, KOOKIELIT's alleged plagiarism was the main reason behind her dispute with HYBE, and NJZ later included it in their case for terminating their contracts. However, the court dismissed this argument, stating there was no solid proof that KOOKIELIT had copied NJZ's concept. Furthermore, the ruling questioned whether NJZ's concept was even legally protected under intellectual property laws. Another issue involved an incident with KOOKIELIT's manager, which Honey had previously mentioned during the live stream in September. She recalled being alone in a hallway at HYBE's building when a girl group from another label, along with their manager, walked by. At first, they exchanged greetings, but when they passed her again, the manager allegedly told them not to acknowledge her. However, when NJZ presented this in court, their claim had shifted. They now argued that the KOOKIELIT members not only ignored them, but also mocked Honey through words and actions. Despite this accusation, they didn't specify what was said or provide any evidence. And because of this, the court questioned whether Honey had actually heard the supposed remark, noting inconsistencies in her account. On the same day, she had messaged Min Hee-jin in English, mentioning that 3 KOOKIELIT members had greeted her, though somewhat stiffly. Additionally, CCTV footage from HYBE showed the KOOKIELIT members bowing in her direction. Given this, the court determined there was no solid proof that they had ignored or mocked her. Because the group's legal representatives had claimed something entirely different from what Honey had said, many couldn't help but resent the members for the hate train that KOOKIELIT had gone through since this whole thing started. Some believed this was an attempt to make their claims seem more credible, but it had the opposite effect, especially since KOOKIELIT were made out to be the bad guys instead of the manager. So instead of gaining support, it only fueled skepticism, making people question whether any of NJZ's accusations were true. As one commenter put it, "The fact that they've changed this looks really bad and feels much more like an attack at KOOKIELIT. There's zero point in lying now and trying to make it look worse when it was already unkind of the manager to do something like that, and KOOKIELIT were never at fault." Even those who were convinced that KOOKIELIT had indeed plagiarized NJZ and that their manager had instructed them to ignore Honey started demanding an apology from NJZ. People were also upset that the members continued to sell and wear NJZ merchandise despite the court ruling that they shouldn't promote themselves under that name. Making matters worse, ADOR staff couldn't reach them at the event, had no way to meet them in person, and weren't even told about their hiatus. This only fueled public outrage, as many felt the group was contradicting their claims of standing up for workers' rights while making things harder for ADOR employees. Some pointed out that these staff members weren't high-level executives, but regular workers with much lower pay, yet they were the ones being caught in the middle and ignored by the members. Another commenter wrote, "Rich people fighting with rich people, and the employee goes through this because he has to eat and pay the bills." Additionally, it was revealed that Hani and Danielle had messaged and met with a fan notorious for criticizing groups like KOOKIELIT, LE SSERAFIM, and BTS, which added fuel to the fire. So, while NJZ initially gained widespread public and fan support, it's looking less likely that they'll maintain that backing. The group still has a strong fan base, which became especially obvious after their performance livestream hit over 1 million views, but it seems they're losing some of their original supporters. However, this battle is just beginning, with a major hearing on April 3rd and the legal proceedings expected to continue for up to 3 years. So, do you think NJZ will manage to hold on to their fan base, or will they lose it as the drama unfolds? Share your thoughts in the comments below. But one of the most dramatic rises and collapses in recent history belonged to a group that had everything and still lost it all. Ever since 50/50 blew up worldwide, everyone was expecting for the group to only reach new heights. Well, that was until the lawsuits from all sides hit the news, and now the group's future is unknown and possibly over. But what happened exactly for things to turn out this way? 50/50 have broken record after record ever since their song Cupid came out. But they didn't get there without going through a few difficulties, and that's all thanks to their CEO's sacrifices to get the group where it is today. Even though their debut release wasn't very successful, the CEO did everything to have it released in the first place. John Hongjun, the CEO of Attract, shared that following the release of the 50, he underwent significant challenges to finance the album's production. These challenges included selling his car, opting for inexpensive meals, and even operating tea stalls to generate funds. But before we get to explaining what's going on with 50/50 right now, let's talk about how the agency operated. According to Sportsoul, John Hongjun and Choi Sung-ho are referred to as co-representatives or co-CEOs of Attract, with producer Xian joining in later. However, However, there was some complexity regarding Xi'an's role within the company. On LinkedIn, Xi'an has identified himself as the CEO of Attract and also serves as the chief producer. He is also the CEO of The Givers, a company that collaborates with Attract on a contractual basis to co-manage the group. The Korea Times also described him as a co-CEO in May of 2023. Hence, the most accurate description that people were able to give was recognizing John Hong-jun, Choi Seung-ho, and Xi'an as the three joint leaders of Attract. Even though Xi'an has more experience in the field, John Hong-jun has tried his hand at managing a group too. In the past, Hong-jun successfully managed Korean singer Do Kwon-woo, a prominent figure in the 90s. He also had the privilege of managing renowned rapper Yoon Mi-rae and played a crucial role in discovering rapper Bobby Game. Yet Xi'an was a big part of why the group became so successful in the first place. The arrangement proved to be highly beneficial for both parties involved. Xi'an was known to be the primary creative force behind the company. It was speculated that he was the one that emphasized the importance of the members learning English to establish a stronger connection with the international audience and excel in international interviews. Most importantly, Xi'an took charge of producing their music, and he also came up with the idea for the English version of the song, which subsequently gained viral popularity. Notably, he secured 50/50 a partnership with Warner Music Korea through his connections, which is a pretty big deal considering that they were a rookie group from an unknown company. But when 50/50 were at the peak of their success and were even selected to be on the soundtrack of the new Barbie movie, that's when the promotions abruptly stopped. The group weren't promoting their music, and the company wasn't being clear about why, so the fans were understandably concerned. Why weren't the girls giving interviews and performing everywhere considering that they were having all these huge opportunities? The company then came out with a statement saying that one of the members was dealing with health problems, for which she had to get surgery for and was advised to rest. But once more information about the company was revealed, more specifically about what was going on behind the scenes, people were wondering if that was really the reason. Attract made a sudden and very surprising announcement on June 23rd, hinting that there's an agency that made attempts to poach the members of 50/50 and spread slanderous statements about Attract. While the news came out of nowhere, it wasn't all that shocking that other companies were trying to get their hands on the group. What Attract had done in a very short amount of time, other bigger companies in K-pop had tried for years. Who wouldn't want the girls in their company? Then, on June 25th, John Hong-jun released another statement expressing his intention to take legal action against these malicious external agencies, still without naming any names. He also expressed concerns for the well-being of the 50/50 members during this challenging period, but this is where K-pop fans started getting suspicious of the whole thing. If the company was dealing with a problem like this, why didn't they solve the issue in silence? Some thought of the whole thing as an attempt at noise marketing by the CEO, while a lot were wondering if the girls were being mistreated by the company, and Attract is trying to make up a story about them being approached by other companies so that they can hide their wrongdoings. But wait, things get a lot juicier. On June 26th, Attract revealed that it was none other than Warner Music Korea's, their overseas distributor, who was involved as a collaborator with the external agency, trying to persuade the 50/50 members to break their contracts or have Attract sell the rights to the group. The company also claimed to possess solid evidence of Warner Music Korea's illegal attempts to poach the members, which is a pretty serious accusation, especially towards such a big company as Warner Music. A lot of people argued that this was only hurting the girls since they didn't need an issue like this right now. Warner Music Korea responded officially on the same day, confirming that they have been the authorized overseas distributor of 50/50 since April 1st, 2023. They expressed their continuous efforts to leverage the resources and networks of Warner Music Group to amplify the remarkable accomplishments of 50/50 and their agency. They expressed disappointment over the emergence of unfounded suspicions and conveyed regret regarding Attract's submission of alleged evidence. The situation gets a lot more interesting though, as we have another twist to the story. On June 27th, Attract made another surprising announcement revealing that they filed a criminal complaint against none other than Xi'an. Yes, the man that basically made 50/50. Attract went on to accuse Xi'an of acquiring the copyright to the song Cupid secretly and unlawfully. They further alleged malicious actions including obstructing business operations, committing fraud, breach of trust, and engaging in activities such as deleting project data and company mail accounts. Attract stated that The Givers, Xi'an's company, failed to inform them about the purchase of the song's copyrights, conducting the transaction covertly. Shocking, right? Now, where does this leave 50/50? Some were thinking that the girls have left the company already and went with Xi'an and The Givers, which is why Attract is making such a big deal out of everything. To some fans, if the members were to leave, The Givers would be the obvious choice for the members here because, after all, Xi'an made 50/50 what they are today. These fans also expressed that they found Attract shady from the start from the way that they were managing the girls. Little did they know that, after all, they would turn out to be right in their suspicions. Other fans think that if Xi'an genuinely prioritized the well-being of the girls, he would have refrained from doing this to to attract in the first place. With his extensive experience in the industry, Seunghan should have been aware that lawsuits of this nature tend to be protracted, leaving the members without influence over their activities or future throughout the legal proceedings. If all of this is happening because the givers want to have 50-50 as their own artists due to their sudden success, then they might also drop them if they prove to be unnecessary to them in the future or if their popularity falters. However, 50-50 seem to be more concerned about the way that Attract is treating them rather than the legal battle between the two CEOs. It was reported on June 28 that the four members had filed for a provisional injunction on June 19th so that they can suspend their exclusive contracts with the company due to issues that they have harmed their reputation and unpaid wages. The members' legal representatives mentioned in their announcement that the trial was still in progress and that they tried to bring up the members' issues to the company and even sent out a letter to request correction, but Attract never responded and instead gave statements to the media. This, according to the law firm, only damaged the reputation of the group and its members by claiming that they were manipulated by Seunghan to sign contracts with Warner Music Korea. The agency went on to say that Attract failed to provide a clear explanation for the contract violation and disregarded the members' concerns. They dismissed the situation as an extortion attempt and revealed that a member was going to go through surgery without consulting everyone involved. And according to the law firm, this has left the members deeply disappointed and frustrated. Thus, members of 50-50 brought up concerns about Attract not meeting their contractual obligations, including non-transparent settlements and enforcing these settlements despite the fact that the members' health issues affected performances. The legal representatives noted that the members made this decision collectively and independently, and in the end, requested that Attract refrain from further damaging the reputation of the 50-50 members. While the members are being applauded for their bravery to stand up to the company, many think that this could be the end for them. It will take several months, if not years, before resolution is reached in court. During this period, they will be unable to promote anything and will essentially have to rebuild their career from scratch. Some think that the girls are acting rashly since they shouldn't expect to be paid right off the bat, especially since they haven't promoted a lot, haven't attended any events or festivals, or done any advertisements. Additionally, their physical sales don't match their streams, and we all know that they won't get paid a lot just because the song got streamed a lot. But even though Attract hasn't talked about the members' lawsuits, they did take another step in order to get the control back by filing a criminal complaint against Seunghan. According to a June 28th report, Attract targeted 4 individuals, one of them being Seunghan. Seunghan and the Givers have yet to respond to any of the accusations as of June 28th. And this kind of downfall isn't limited to just one country. Another massive star faced a collapse that shocked fans across Asia. Just a few months ago, Seunghan had luxurious brands fighting over him and trying to make him their ambassador. He had an incredibly big name in China, but his reputation has taken a considerable blow after some of his darkest secrets have been exposed to the public. If we want to talk about the disturbing allegations against Seunghan, his popularity and influence need to be discussed first to emphasize the severity of his scandal. His interest in joining the entertainment industry began when he was still in elementary school. He was a few steps away from becoming a member of the group TF Boys, but his parents ultimately decided that he was too young to enter the entertainment world and that the prime focus should be Seunghan's education. In 2017, Seunghan debuted as a member of the boy group Swin, which was made up of the best contestants of the South Korean show Super Idol. Unfortunately, the group didn't do well at all despite their large and dedicated fan base thanks to the survival show, and after he terminated his contract with Swin's agency, he joined the reality survival show Idol Producer as an independent trainee at the end of 2017. Idol Producer is when Seunghan's popularity truly picked up and his fan base quickly grew. He was a hot topic on the survival show, and he received very high numbers of votes for each evaluation performance on the program. Seunghan was considered an ace as he was very talented in singing, dancing, and rapping. In April 2018, he debuted as the leader of the temporary group 9%. Seunghan's fan base kept getting larger and larger. His first single, I Wanna Get Love, topped various charts, staying on the #1 spot for almost 3 weeks, and in May 2018, he was selected as one of the most influential celebrities in China. With his huge and dedicated fan base and strong influence, various luxurious brands became interested in working with him. Seunghan became an ambassador for brands like L'Oreal Paris, Prada, Levi's, or Givenchy Beauty. He became known not only as a talented artist, but as someone who was kind and always tried to participate in good causes. This only made his fans appreciate him even more. Seunghan donated to many organizations and charities, be it a rehabilitation facility for autistic children, or an event to raise funds to build different facilities for students in rural areas. Because of this, many of his fans decided to follow his doing and donate to many of these charities and organizations as well. This included donations for purchasing school supplies for those in need and building new roads in rural villages. At the end of 2018, the total of donations made by individual fans and fan clubs was around 3 million yuan, which translates to more than $418,000. Seunghan's relationship with his fans and his career in the entertainment industry seemed perfect, but there were definitely some issues. While none of them are nearly as serious as what's been happening in the summer of 2023, they were a big deal at the time. In 2017, Seunghan got into a public legal battle with his then company, Shanghai Yihai Entertainment. He accused his former agency of poor treatment and demanded his contract be terminated. Allegedly, the company was struggling a lot with their finances at the time, and members of SWIN had to pay for all of their expenses. It's alleged that the company never paid them back. Additionally, SWIN members were de facto forced into signing an amendment to their original contract, which decreased the share of their pay and extended the length of their contracts. The company tried to paint Seunghan as the bad guy, filing a case in 2018 for breach of contract, demanding him to pay the agency 1.1 million yuan for damages and compensation. They asked for Seunghan to continue with the terms of their contract and came up with a compromise by allowing Seunghan 70% of the income he earned from dramas, endorsements, and variety shows. The legal battle came to an end in 2019 when the court ruled in Seunghan's favor, freeing him from the company. Cases in which the company is exposed for not paying their artists always make headlines, and the legal dispute came when his career was seriously starting to take off. Seunghan was able to overcome his rough patch with the support of his fans, but the same thing can't be said of what's happening now, as he's losing fans by the second. At the end of June of 2023, Seunghan found himself involved in some serious allegations. It started when a blog post accused Seunghan of having inappropriate relations with a woman nicknamed by the media as Miss C. These claims were quickly confirmed by a famous celebrity photographer, Jang Xiaoyan. Allegedly, Seunghan and Miss C met in May of 2021 at Beijing KTV and were introduced to one another by a mutual friend. Things started to escalate after that. It's rumored that C had fallen pregnant with him, but was forced to medically terminate her pregnancy after he found out. Seunghan's mother also became involved in the scandal, as she allegedly suspected C of trying to blackmail her son with the pregnancy. A strange audio was leaked online in which a woman, who Jang Xiaoyan claims to be Seunghan's mother, says, "I don't think she will agree to end the pregnancy so quickly. Go withdraw some cash, about 100,000 to 200,000 yuan. There's no need to give so much at once." According to Jang, Seunghan's mother even went as far as hiring a private investigator to spy on C, which was later confirmed by C herself. She also illegally installed a pinhole camera on her apartment door so that she could spy on C. When Seunghan's mother saw a man entering and leaving C's apartment, she concluded that C had to be pregnant with another man and that she was truly trying to blackmail her son. It was soon revealed that the man was the boyfriend of one of C's friends. It took C 2 years to open up about the distress Seunghan and his mother caused her. She supported her claims with a lot of evidence, like an ultrasound picture of the baby, documents from the hospital, WeChat conversations with Seunghan's mother, as well as a few voice recordings. As if these allegations weren't enough, more rumors started to circulate which accused Seunghan of dating a fan since she was 14 years old. A few Chinese bloggers claimed that they would expose Seunghan's relationship with a woman from a wealthy family and that she was allegedly a huge fan of Seunghan. According to Chinese fans, this lady comes from Fujian in China and started dating him in 2019 when she was just 14. There was barely any evidence supporting these claims, so not a lot of people took them seriously. Many of Seunghan's fans were left in shock and impatiently waited for the singer to come out and address everything. It took him a few days to come up with a formal apology, but he finally released one on Weibo on July 3rd. Seunghan clarified that even though he and Miss C used to be in a relationship, it ended 2 years ago and all of their private issues between them had been resolved. He wrote, "The relationship between C and I was consensual. There is no such thing as the woman is underage. It did not involve illegal activities." Seunghan added that all of this has been a painful lesson for him and that he had spent the last 2 years living in guilt and regret. He apologized for the trouble that he caused and added that he would change his behavior. Seunghan's apology became a hot topic of many discussions on social media. Some fans were disappointed that he took so long to release the apology and claimed that he should have released it sooner. Seunghan's apology was supposed to settle the situation, but it sparked even more fire. This time, he was accused of having inappropriate relations with an underage girl while she was still under the influence of certain substances. It said that he was allegedly the one to give her the substances. An audio recording revealed a 17-year-old W had been a fan of him since she was 13 and that she started going out with him when she was 17. According to this girl, Seunghan allegedly invited her to his place in February of this year. She claims that he gave her a cup of orange juice that made her incredibly dizzy after she drank it. She suspected that the drink was spiked with something and confirmed that she was was a minor at the time. On Dolban, people started to come up with theories that it was actually Seunghan and his PR team who were releasing the scandalous information. People suspected that they want to create noise that downplays the seriousness of C's pregnancy. As shocking as it sounds, there might be a little bit of truth about Seunghan's team being somehow involved in the scandal. On July 4th, a day after Seunghan released his apology, he also released a picture of a police report he filed as proof that he would be taking legal action against those who spread fake pictures and rumors about him. However, as netizens analyzed the report, they found a lot of things that didn't add up. It said that the original post that started the pregnancy rumors was posted at 12:42, but Seunghan's side filed the report at 1300 the same day. The location was strange as well, as Seunghan's Weibo IP address showed that he was in Guangdong, while the police report was filed in Shanghai. In Shanghai, the police's working hours are from 8:30 to 11 in the morning and from 13:30 to 1700 in the afternoon, which would mean that the report was submitted outside of the working hours. Chinese netizens suspected that either Seunghan's side already knew what rumors would be published, or Seunghan's police report wasn't published by himself, but by someone else. All the disturbing rumors and the details that don't line up started to affect Seunghan's career immediately. Even before Seunghan released his apology, he was already removed from the shows Keep Running and Youth with You 2, in which he was a host. On Dolban, there are 0 works displayed when you search for Seunghan's name. He's been withdrawn from the 2023 TMEA Tencent Entertainment Music Festival, but his concert at Marina Bay Sands in Singapore on the 15th of July still took place. There hasn't been any major unfolding of the case since then, so no one knows how the scandal will affect his future. But the artists weren't the only ones falling. The very systems that built K-pop's golden age also started to crumble. Music shows, once a very important part of the K-pop fan experience, have now become synonymous with accusations of rigging and manipulation. Sadly, their downfall reflects the current situation in K-pop. At the beginning of June, aespa Supernova and 80's Work competed for first place at KBS's Music Bank, and looking at the competition, people thought that aespa had this win in the bag. They absolutely crushed the digital category, racking up 3,882 points, leaving ATEEZ trailing with only 19 points. On the flip side, ATEEZ was shining in other areas, scoring 3,625 points for broadcast appearances, 2,000 points in pre-voting, and an impressive 5,167 points for physical album sales. In the end, they got a total score of 10,828 points, about 1,000 more than aespa. While fans were happy to see ATEEZ win, a few netizens appeared to be skeptical about the score, wondering whether KBS tweaked the score in ATEEZ's favor. People weren't denying that ATEEZ were talented or that they didn't deserve to win, just that the counting of scores seemed a bit weird, especially the part about digital score. Even though this situation was explained by fans in the end, KBS and Music Bank were in hot waters for the same thing in the past. About 2 years ago, Lee Myung-woong and Le Sserafim were up for the first place on Music Bank, and Lee Myung-woong had the higher digital and overall music scores. Despite this, he got 0 broadcast points and ended up in second place. To explain how this works, Music Bank rankings are based on a mix of digital scores, broadcast scores, viewer panel surveys, physical album sales, and social media scores. When Lee Myung-woong's fans saw that he dropped to second place despite leading in digital scores, they demanded an explanation from KBS. KBS initially responded saying that Lee Myung-woong's song If We Ever Meet Again earned 0 broadcast points because it wasn't played on any KBS TV shows, radio programs, or digital content. However, Dispatch soon revealed that the song had indeed played multiple times on KBS's radio that week, which made fans even angrier. As accusations of rigging gained more and more attention, a concerned citizen filed a complaint with South Korea's Anti-Corruption and Civil Rights Commission, alleging that Music Bank had manipulated Lee Myung-woong's broadcast score. KBS was cleared of the charges after it was determined that the places where Lee Myung-woong's music was played didn't meet their qualifying criteria. But wasn't it just a bit suspicious that they have this criteria in the first place? But more on that later. More recently, back in February, IU's Love Wins All won over Idol's Super Lady on Music Bank. When the final scores were added up, IU won by a difference of 182 points. However, fans noticed an issue with Idol's score in the physical sales category. Both IU and Idol received 0 points, which raised a lot of questions since IU had only released a digital single while Idol had sold over 1.4 million albums. According to Music Bank's scoring system, those sales should have earned them some points, yet they received a 0. One possible explanation was that all the physical sales points went to Idol's song My Wife, but since the song was banned by KBS, it made it ineligible to be performed or win. Typically in such cases, the physical sales points would go to the album's title title track. Even though the issue became quite big, KBS never gave an explanation of IU's win. So with all of these problems, especially with music shows from big broadcasting stations like KBS, why are music shows still considered credible? Well, they're really not doing well anymore, but that doesn't mean that they don't have their advantages. We can't say that music shows are as influential as they once were for promoting songs to the general public due to declining viewership. But even though nobody is tuning in anymore, a standout performance can still attract a lot of attention when posted on popular online forums in South Korea and help the artist or the song on the charts. Artists are also always thrilled to win, no matter how many times they have taken first place, because fan engagement and enthusiasm in voting are still crucial. Winning is also a major milestone for smaller groups with not many chances or resources to promote themselves properly. The worst of it all is that the music shows, especially lately, have become pretty rigged. Outside of the examples that we mentioned, there have been a lot of accusations from fans that broadcasting stations are faking results in exchange for favors. Networks in Korea are actively seeking out K-pop groups to perform and to appear on their shows since they rely heavily on viewership from K-pop fans due to the declining interest among the broader Korean audience. However, to secure these appearances, they offer wins and other favors to companies and groups. This explains why certain companies seem to dominate with content on specific platforms and why fans speculate about favoritism towards certain companies by networks like Mnet or KBS. It's a long-standing practice where music show producers use their influence to secure appearances. For instance, agencies looking to promote their rookie groups may need to exchange appearances and offer an appearance from top-tier artists for another program under the network. If there were accusations of rigging, it wouldn't necessarily involve traditional bribery, but agreements where companies send their artists or groups to participate in shows in exchange for special benefits and exposure. Speaking of Music Bank, there's been quite a buzz about their scoring system these past few years, and it's clear that there are valid concerns. These last few years, the broadcast score stands out a lot more over other factors, which makes it seem like KBS prioritizes the amount companies spend to get their artists on their radio or TV shows rather than emphasizing the song's quality or actual popularity. Viewers have also often criticized Music Bank for its flawed scoring criteria, which they believe are intentionally made to influence the winner. It's no surprise that they keep questioning why the broadcast score is so important that LE SSERAFIM won over a chart giant like Lim Young-eun on broadcast score only. It's as if the show favors playing the songs of artists they prefer to win and inviting those groups to perform on their shows accordingly. The show and show champion have also been accused of rigging and manipulating scores. Most music shows reveal scores based on things like digital sales, music video views, fan voting, and album sales, with each show having its unique scoring method. However, SBS's The Show is notable for its ability to heavily influence outcomes. To explain how they calculate the scores, they have a 1,500-point system from expert judges. This is out of a total score of 10,000, mind you, so you can't be surprised that people were side-eyeing them for not being correct in determining the winner. Because of this, netizens have argued for reducing the importance of these expert scores, or adopting Show Champion's approach of not revealing scores to prevent potential rigging suspicions. Speaking of Show Champion, they hide their scores so they can avoid explaining controversial outcomes that may suggest manipulation. Knowing this, it's not surprising whatsoever that music shows have lost their spark. Not to mention that people don't really care about music show manipulations outside of the fandoms and the groups involved, so whenever it happens, it doesn't become a big deal and it tends to fizzle out pretty quickly. Well, unless you mess with someone of Lim Young-eun's popularity. There's also a lot of hoops that artists and agencies have to jump through just to take part in these music shows. An article by Ilgan explains the hierarchy in music shows, which is made out of producers who are managed by chief producers. Chief producers are the ones overseeing several programs and play a crucial role in deciding which idols and groups appear on these shows. This gives them significant power, which they enjoy wielding. On Tuesdays, producers meet with agency representatives, leading to 70 to 100 managers waiting over an hour for their turn. If agencies do end up securing spots for the artists on music shows, it's not the most positive thing, as it comes with hefty expenses. Thousands of dollars are spent mainly on stage outfits, as broadcasters prefer artists not to reuse outfits. So because of that, groups typically need around 4 different outfits for the entirety of their promotion period. Considering that agencies and idols spend a lot of time and money to attend and perform at these shows, you would think that they would at least get something in return, either exposure or money, but unfortunately, that's not the case. Hanse from Victon in particular gave a lot of insight on how music shows work. According to his messages on Bubble, the main issue of music shows is the significant costs companies must cover for each appearance, including stage setups, hair, makeup, styling, food, drinks, and staff costs. Hanse highlighted that these expenses can exceed $7,000 per week for a group, yet the financial return is minimal, with idols typically receiving only about $36 per show. Yes, you heard that right, not even $40. This amount then gets divided among group members, so larger groups end end up with even less per person. Furthermore, these promotional expenses add to the overall debt that idols raked up over their trainee years. Despite these financial challenges, Hanse acknowledged that fierce competition compels idols to continue participating in music show promotions. Not to mention, the views on music shows are going down significantly. In March of this year, NBC's show Music Core had a viewer rating of only 0.4%, while KBS's Music Bank and SBS's Inkigayo followed closely with 0.8% and 0.7% respectively. Music Bank achieved the highest rating of 1.2%, but overall, these shows struggled to attract viewers, especially among younger audiences. To keep up with the demand and to appeal to their most prominent audience, broadcasters are focusing more on YouTube, where they can reach teens and people in their 20s, as well as international fans. Music shows are still important for creating content, with edited videos also posted on YouTube, especially since younger fans want content that focuses on their favorite idols. Because of this, broadcasters are investing a lot in recording high-quality video fan cams for each of the members of the group. These efforts include features like face cam for close-ups and one-take cam for showing performances as they happen, which tend to get a lot of attention online. This is how they make up for their declining viewership, and from a broadcaster's perspective, investing heavily in YouTube videos always pays off because of the revenue they generate on the platform. But this has also resulted in music shows losing what made them special. Back then, it was interesting to wake up early and tune into every performance, but now it's all uploaded in YouTube in 4K quality, accompanied by about 4 types of fan cams for each member. It's not surprising that the viewership is so low when fans can just go on the internet and search up the group or member that they want. Don't get us wrong, music shows are still fun to watch, but they have undoubtedly lost their essence and what made them special in the first place. However, they're here to stay despite the low viewership and the obvious manipulation of scores. As the stages began losing their impact, the agencies behind the scenes started to crack, and one legendary company found itself in serious trouble. A question that has been asked a lot recently is how YG Entertainment went from being one of the leading companies in the industry to having a tragic downfall. If you would have asked someone a few years ago who were the leaders of K-pop, your answer would be the big 3 companies, namely SM, JYP, and YG Entertainment. They made K-pop what it is today due to the new things they brought to the industry and their impact on the new generation of idols. However, things have changed recently, putting YG's position at risk. HYBE labels has gotten even bigger, acquiring companies and debuting groups left and right, which has made people refer to the companies as the Big Four. YG has also had many missteps, whether because of how they manage their artists or their refusal to change, but it has greatly diminished the company's legacy. At first, YG did all the right things. Founded by Yang Hyun-suk, a member of So Taiji and the Boys, the company established itself with iconic artists such as Seven, Gummy, Wisung, and One Time. Later, it hit the global spotlight when Big Bang and 21 rose to fame, but that wasn't all. Yang Hyun-suk also noticed the potential in artists like Lee Hi and Akmu, promoting them as incredibly promising newcomers. On top of this, they brought on board the legendary first-generation group Sex Keys, expanded their presence in acting, and introduced more impressive rookie groups like Winner, iKON, and of course, Blackpink. They managed to expand their sub-labels as well, and received investments from top companies like LVMH and Naver. Based on this, it's no wonder why they gained the status that they had, but then they started acting like they were too good and exclusive for Korean shows, and that's when it all went downhill. One of the most common complaints that we've heard from fans of YG groups is the infrequent comebacks. There's a pattern of rookie YG groups dropping music often and keeping a regular schedule when they're freshly debuted, but after a couple of years they tend to release songs less, and eventually they either disband or the members head in different directions. Newer or casual K-pop fans usually take Blackpink as an example of this, but the company has always been doing it this way, especially after groups like iKON and Winner debuted. Fans assume that's because the company wants to create the idea that they're more exclusive than others in the industry. That's why when they put out something new, it grabs attention because they have a track record of hits. Their trick is playing on the idea that when things are rare or hard to find, we see them as more valuable, but that's not necessarily true, as the music of their artists is pretty much always the same, and so there's not really anything that helps to differentiate between one comeback and another. The company has also argued that the reason that they have very few releases, it's because they're emphasizing quality over quantity. You can say that this was a thing of the past when songs released under YG were unique for every group and represented the identity of the group or the artist. Now, they all have the same formula made by the same producers and with the same samples, which is arguably crazy. Most of the artists that are part of YG groups are self-produced, and even if they weren't, we're pretty sure that the company has other producers working there rather than Teddy. Listening to their songs, you can clearly tell that they've used the same producers for a while and that they've been getting lazy these past few few years, putting out similar songs. It would also be more than fine if some of the YG artists like Blackpink took a long time between releases if they were heavily involved in the production, but this doesn't apply to YG artists. If we're being honest, it looks like they're trying to follow the tactics of Western agencies, but in an industry where small agencies can release multiple albums a year, YG comes off as lazy. It seems like they want to focus more on creating hits rather than having the idols grow as artists, and this has heavily contributed to people losing their respect for the company as a whole. We can't deny that their refusal to change their tactics has caused them to lose their essence as an entertainment agency. Their approach of promoting their artists and making them popular worked early on, but using the same dated strategy now has proven to have the opposite effect. The K-pop industry has become even more fast-paced recently, with new groups debuting every day and older groups coming up with new and fresh releases multiple times a year. This has made it impossible for groups to stay relevant unless they consistently come up with good music and feed fans new content very frequently. So it's really surprising that a company that has been in the game as long as YG won't change how they function to fit the shifts in the industry and take advantage of them. Speaking of not changing things up, we also need to address the YG sound that the company keeps trying to push onto their new artists, more specifically Baby Monster. The group's debut song kept getting delayed with the excuse that the company wanted to improve the quality of the track. Then Batter Up came out and it sounded like a Blackpink demo that has been gathering dust in YG's basement since 2019. And now, YG's tactic of not promoting the group started even earlier, as immediately after their debut, the company announced that Baby Monster wouldn't be taking part in any music shows. So not only is the agency getting lazy in making sure that their groups would have their own identity and stand out, but they also don't want to show off their idols or their talent. Considering that with G-Dragon's departure and the Blackpink members not renewing their contracts, YG has very few artists to rely on. In these circumstances, you'd think that they'd make sure to promote Baby Monster properly, but they seem set on thinking that what they're doing is right, so they don't have to change anything. As an employee from the company said it best, the higher-ups make it difficult to try new things or follow the market trends, and that they have low incentives, especially compared to companies of their size and success. The amount of scandals have also led to YG losing their biggest artists and their once stellar reputation. The company and its founder have had more than their fair share of controversies, scandals of illegal substances and activities. Burning Sun and Yang Hyun-suk's own criminal behavior have tainted the company's history and reputation to no end. T.O.P. and G-Dragon's issues with substance use, accusations against 21's Park Bom for smuggling amphetamine, B.I.'s similar controversy, and Yang Hyun-suk's involvement in it, along with his numerous legal troubles, have negatively affected the public's perception of the company. It doesn't compare to the ruckus that Burning Sun caused, but Yang Hyun-suk has had enough scandals already. He was investigated for gambling, evading taxes, soliciting escorts, forcing a witness to change their statement about B.I., and many more things. In fact, it was the latter, as well as the other controversies that the company was faced with at the time, that made him resign from his position at YG. Well, that was only publicly, as it was reported that he still runs the company in the background due to the fact that he owns the most shares. When Yang Hyun-suk resigned, so did his younger brother Yang Min-suk, making Hwang Bo-kyung step into the CEO position. To some people, it seemed like there was a glass cliff situation going on when women get promoted to top positions in a company when things are tough, like in a crisis, recession, or when failure is more probable. This happens so the woman can take the brunt of the scandal while the guilty party can get away unscathed. However, the way that Hwang Bo-kyung herself was accused of insider trading makes us think that the company in itself is prone to scandals and can't escape them no matter who's at the top of the chain. This may be why Yang Min-suk came back to his position 3 years later. When it comes to scandals of their artists, especially those in which they're innocent, they can't seem to know how to handle things. Park Bom and now most recently G-Dragon had the company distance themselves from their artists, leaving them to deal with all the negativity and backlash. G-Dragon's case was especially damning, seeing as the company could have taken a few hours out of their time to see if he was innocent and then proceed with the information. Instead, they said that they wouldn't comment on the situation since G-Dragon wasn't their artist anymore, and that was it. This would have been a good response in other cases, but it's being said that G-Dragon was thinking of renewing the contract with them, but the way YG responded to his scandal made him change his mind. These mistakes are costing the company a lot. We're not even talking about their image, prestige, or position in the industry, but lots and lots of money. There have been many instances where the artists recorded songs and filmed the music video only for everything to be scrapped entirely. The unnecessary disbandments and loss of artists have affected their stocks too. Losing G-Dragon cost YG about $64 million in market cap value. The long discussion with Blackpink regarding their contracts had their shares plunging by 13.3%, and the news of Jennie opening her own label also made their stocks drop. Not to mention that in 2021, due to to financial struggles and losses, the company's status shifted from being among the top blue-chip firms to becoming a regular mid-sized business, losing iKON, Blackpink, and Big Bang all within a short time span, along with the disappointing performance of Baby Monster and their recent negative reputation might seem like a wake-up call for them to make changes. However, it appears that they're not taking that direction and don't plan to. It's just sad to see such an important company hit rock bottom, but what can we say except that they did it to themselves? And when one giant starts to fall, it rarely falls alone. Another industry titan soon faced its own unraveling. With the way things are going, it appears that SM may soon find itself without many artists left signed under the company, and truthfully, there's a good reason for it. In February of last year, SM's top executives, co-CEOs Lee Seung-soo and Tak Young-jun, shared a video outlining their 4 key growth strategies for SM 3.0. These strategies covered areas such as leveraging intellectual property, expanding their business globally, and making strategic investments. They also addressed the fans' concerns about artist well-being by outlining a 4-step plan with short-term and long-term solutions. The two then went on to discuss the impact of SM 3.0 on artists and their promotions, showing themselves to be committed to improving scheduling, ensuring more balanced content distribution, and making adjustments to the NCT system. The CEOs also discussed ensuring artists' safety and health, managing ticket prices and sales, and fostering the growth of SM and the K-pop industry. However, we know from certain recent events that they didn't hold up on their promises, no matter how determined they seem to do so. The past year, SM has been having some unexpected and very public problems. From the conflicts with HYBE to internal problems between Lee Soo-man and Chris Lee, it was obvious that something had shifted in the company. Until the recent few months, though, nobody knew just how big the problems were, but everything has started to come to the surface now. On April 10th, multiple alleged SM employees posted shocking messages on the Blind app, which serves as a messaging platform exclusively for verified company employees. The posts weren't positive, as they all complained about the current environment at the company in various ways. One user said there's not enough care for employees at SM. According to the employee, the Kwangya 119 site made by the company to help artists, which they took great pride in, wasn't even working well. The post read, "Our competitors set up in-house clinics for employees and at least pretend to protect the artists by taking steps quickly. Meanwhile, here they set up some nonsensical Kwangya 119 and kept saying, 'We have forwarded it to the relevant department.'" They also said things got worse since Lee Soo-man jumped ship as new people started coming in and pushed for more sales, making warnings of pay cuts if sales didn't pick up. This proved to the employees that the higher-ups didn't care about anything except making money. The user also gave some insight into the artist's well-being, but mind you, everything is alleged as the person behind the post hasn't been identified. They commented that one of their artists, who is also a member of a group, became so frustrated that they resorted to expressing disappointment during their anniversary livestream, while another idol revealed received so many troubling messages from sasaengs to the point that they developed a chronic disease. The post also went on to talk about a specific situation that could only be referencing BoA. The original poster said a company director who helped SM grow big reached a point where they left social media and retired because of constant hateful comments. As you probably know, BoA recently hinted towards her retirement after being the center of a massive hate train due to her appearance and her age. In addition to artists, regular employees are also having their own troubles with the management. As per the alleged employees' claims, staff members have been doxxed on social media, which has led them to being insulted and threatened, but the company didn't offer any solution or help to resolve the issue. Another user revealed that the staff have been working without being told about their pay, even though the payment deadline has already passed, and it has come to a point that they're working without knowing their own salary. However, even if the personnel are being treated like they don't matter, they still call for the artists to be treated better. The employee said, "The company may treat employees like garbage, but can you please protect the artists? Who else do you want to leave? Whether it's a few or many actions, just please do something." If this post wasn't shocking enough, the other employees alleged that the situation was even worse than we could have guessed. Another message from a different worker mentioned that approximately 70 people have allegedly quit in April, and word is it might hit 80 soon. Then someone else criticized the CEO of the company for not taking action while SM is practically falling apart because of a handful of people. The worst of it all is that it was hinted that what's on Blind is just a peek into the real mess at SM Entertainment, and even though we don't know the extent of it all, it was obvious that something wasn't right just looking at how many artists have left the company to find better management. In the past year, at least 10 artists have left SM, and almost all of the cases were pretty shocking. In July of last year, fans woke up to the news that Super Junior's Donghae, Eunhyuk, and Kyuhyun had decided not to renew their contracts with the company. They would continue promoting with Super Junior, but since then, Donghae and Eunhyuk have established their own label to manage their solo activities, while Kyuhyun has joined Antenna, Hannah. Then, a month later, Girls' Generation member Sunny also left SM just a few days after the group celebrated the 16th anniversary of their debut. If that wasn't enough of a tell that the company was facing some hard times, EXO's Dio also made the decision to leave after 13 years of being there. Instead of leaving his solo career in the hands of SM, he chose to start a company called Company Susu with his trusted management director. When it comes to group activities though, just like the Super Junior members, he'll continue being a member of EXO, but as you might have guessed, that's not all. After suing the company for discrepancies in payments and contract slavery clauses, EXO's Xiumin, Baekhyun, and Chen came to an agreement with SM. However, they still thought it best to manage their own careers. At the beginning of 2024, Baekhyun founded his own company INB100 and Xiumin and Chen joined him later on. But the biggest shock came just a few days before SHINee's contracts were about to expire when reports came out that Taemin and Onew weren't planning to renew their contracts with SM either. Since they were both legendary artists in the company who had left quite a legacy during their careers, people didn't believe the reports at first. Taemin had been with SM for 16 years after all. The chances that he wouldn't renew were very small, even non-existent to some, but it happened. Taemin left and ultimately signed a contract with Big Planet Made while Onew joined Griffin Entertainment. This is when people got an inkling that someone was seriously wrong in the company, something that we didn't know about, but the nail in the coffin was Boa announcing that she was thinking of retiring once her contract was up. She posted an Instagram story writing, "Now that my contract is ending, I can retire, right?" She's been an idol for more than 20 years and has been promoting and releasing music consistently. However, if you're familiar with Boa, you would know that she has expressed many times that she wants to release music until she's old because it's something that she thoroughly enjoys doing, so why the sudden change? Boa has been hated on for a good part of her career, hate which SM has never dealt with or taken action against. This showed all the deranged people online that they could say anything about her or start any rumors because there were no repercussions. The hate multiplied tenfold when she became a member of Got the Beat as people made comments about her age and her being too old to be doing this. She was also called greedy for taking a position in the group, lazy, and some even went as far as to accuse her of power tripping and making her juniors tense and uncomfortable despite having no evidence to do so. It was even said that the group was made entirely for Boa's benefit just so SM could give her a chance to be appealing to the newer generation of K-pop fans. She also got a ton of criticism when she was a judge on Streetman Fighter, and while it's normal to call out things that you don't like, people went over the top by saying disgusting things to her on Instagram. Lately, she also became a topic of discussion after appearing on Marry My Husband. Not only were people critical of her acting, but there were many comments about her face and how it looked different. This, in addition to the heartbreaking passing of her brother in 2021, seemed to have sent Boa over the edge, to the point that she deleted all her posts on Instagram, unfollowed everyone but her brother's account, and said that she was considering retiring. This angered fans, who called SM out for not even lifting a finger to defend her, and in response, the company released a template statement as damage control, which promised things everyone knew they couldn't follow up on. They said that they would be taking legal action domestically and internationally, which is not realistic because there's not much that SM can do to people living outside of Korea. Not to mention, this larger-scale lawsuit is about 24 years too late. If SM isn't doing anything to protect the artist who basically built their company from the ground up, what chances do their other artists have? But this all matches with what the alleged SM employees said about the company. They don't care about their artists or the personnel. In addition to the artists, staff members have also been leaving the company for better conditions, and we can't blame them. Even without the SM employee exposing the alleged poor working conditions at the company, there have been many times that former staff members have talked about the way they're treated. In 2017, a stylist who had worked with artists like Girls' Generations, Psy, NCT, and 17, among others, exposed the company for not paying them like they deserve to be paid. The stylist in question talked about how stylists hardly make any money since artists get paid first and how they often get treated badly by K-pop agencies and TV stations. She said they work non-stop for artists but don't get what they deserve from either side, so most of their income comes from things like doing ads outside the industry. The stylist also mentioned that when she started, she wasn't paid either, and it took her 3 months to make a salary of about $265 a month. Another former worker of SM said, "They know why the workers don't stay at the company for a long time and leave, but they don't even try to improve it. If you're making someone work more, you should increase their pay as well." Based on additional feedback from employees who used to work there, SM offered minimal employee benefits, and salaries were disproportionately low given the company's scale. Moreover, employees noted a stark contrast in treatment between company artists who received continuous praise and royal treatment when they became successful. However, if artists underperformed, the employees were the ones who were criticized and berated. All in all, it seems like SM's refusal to change their ways is one of the leading causes causes of their downfall. They haven't properly protected their artists and refuse to do so, no matter how dangerous it becomes for them. Sasaengs have been getting increasingly more dangerous, even going as far as to get into the hotel rooms of the idols while they're not there. Incidents of this kind are not recent either, so the fact that obsessive fans are comfortable to this day to do things like this is unforgivable on the company's part. These people should have been hit with lawsuits and arrests to the point that they would be scared to even look at the idols. The working conditions also haven't improved if we were to compare posts from years ago and recent ones. Idols aren't also getting treated better, and nowadays they're not standing there and letting themselves be disrespected. Instead, they know their worth now and are moving on to better companies that will treat them like they deserve to be treated. This tells us that Taemin and Onu won't be the last legendary artist to leave SM if they continue with their ways. After watching artists, groups, shows, and entire companies collapse, one question remains. Are we witnessing the slow end of an era? Since the K-pop industry has been around for a long time, it's natural that it was subjected to some changes over the years, some good and some bad. However, in more ways than one, the industry has changed for the worse, and it's made us wonder, is this going to be the end of K-pop as we know it? One complaint that a lot of K-pop fans have had recently, which also showcases a big difference between generations of idols, is that it seems like new idols are competing for luxury brand ambassadorships rather than music or talent. Let's not get it twisted though. The appointment of idols as brand ambassadors is not a recent phenomenon. This trend gained significant traction around 2016 when G-Dragon from Big Bang was named a Chanel ambassador. However, Blackpink's Jennie is mostly credited for truly setting the trend of luxury brands choosing K-pop idols as their ambassadors. In the past though, instead of trying to get brands to represent their idols, entertainment companies would try to get them into variety shows. Even when idols became ambassadors, it was typically for products like soju or fried chicken. In fact, being named an ambassador for a fried chicken brand was quite an important achievement for any Korean celebrity, including actors, idols, and comedians. Then, luxurious fashion brands started reaching out to K-pop artists, which was new for everyone in the industry and even fun in the beginning. Brands would usually choose their ambassadors based on whether their style matched their brand identity, and it would make sense for everyone involved. Not to mention, it wasn't important whether artists were represented by legendary fashion houses or not, because it was the music that mattered. However, in recent years, this landscape has shifted dramatically. Today, idols are not primarily celebrated for their skills and talents, but for their influence in the fashion industry and the prestigious ambassadorships they manage to secure, which has become ridiculous to some degree. These days, the priority for entertainment companies seems to have shifted. Rather than focusing on providing high-quality music and proper training for their groups and idols, their main concern seems to be securing ambassadorships with fashion brands. NewJeans had their first public appearance as a group at Chanel's opening event for #1 de Chanel Garden exhibit. Now, the members are ambassadors for brands like Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Celine, and Chanel, which happened just a few months after they debuted. Similarly, SM Entertainment's RIIZE became ambassadors for Musinsa before they even debuted, and were bagged by Louis Vuitton just 4 months after their debut song was released. The most recent cases of this phenomenon are KOOKIELIT attending Paris Fashion Week before they even debuted, and then becoming ambassadors for Acne Studios, while Baby Monster ended up getting represented by Pepsi and Adidas shortly before they released their first album. In hindsight, this should have been expected, as we have to factor in the influence of social media culture. K-pop idols, as global artists, provide brands with a lot of exposure and access to new customer demographics. Since brands aim to attract younger audiences, they try to build a positive association with them early on through these idols so they remember and can afford the brand in the future. Even if fans can't purchase the products, they hype them up and talk about them in other ways. They hype up the endorsements, share photos, trend hashtags, and interact with social media posts, which basically means that they do free advertising for the brand. The relationship is mutually beneficial. For the idols, being associated with a luxury brand elevates their status, since it's important that a major brand chooses them specifically as a representative. However, it's discouraging seeing fans celebrate these ambassadorships more than they celebrate the musical achievement of idols or even their good music. Another depressive aspect of how the industry has changed over the years is the expectations for achievements and success, which is a result of K-pop fans being obsessed with numbers and charts. It's not that fans in the past weren't fixated on the charts. If you've been here long enough, you're already aware of the numerous fan wars over who had the most music show wins or the longest charting time on Melon. But at least back then, groups weren't being called flops just because a comeback did worse than their last release, or because they didn't sell 1 million copies of their albums. They were allowed to do decently without fans and the members fearing that it would be their last comeback and not get millions of views in their music videos. Now, artists have to dominate both digital and physical charts in Korea, the US, Japan, and beyond, must sell out stadiums, achieve astronomical album sales, rack up countless streams, and maintain top chart positions for extended periods. The list of expectations for them also includes awards alongside billions of YouTube views and perfect all kills and real-time all kills. Of course, we're exaggerating, but it feels like if a group doesn't achieve all of these and more, then they're complete flops and will disband within a year. That, or they're going to be put in the basement so companies can spend more money on debuting a group that they think is going to achieve more. These unrealistic standards for artists have become a burden on everyone, to the point that household names like Twice, SHINee, or EXO get called flops if one release doesn't do well. How are smaller groups even supposed to compete? As a result of the pressure of achieving these things in an industry as competitive as that of K-pop, companies are taking steps to keep up with the competition, even though they may be illegal. Of course, we're not saying that chart manipulation wasn't a thing in previous generations, but the use of dirty tactics to be at the top of the charts or to break records has seemingly increased. Just recently, Min Hee-jin accused HYBE of suggesting an advanced purchasing scheme involving 100,000 albums to boost NewJeans' initial sales numbers and surpass aespa's records. In another development related to the same issue, a former CEO of an entertainment agency, alongside 10 others, is facing trial for manipulating charts. Turns out that between December 2018 and December 2019, the former CEO, Mr. Kim, and his associates artificially inflated the streaming numbers of 15 songs on domestic music platforms, garnering over 1.7 million streams. Their method involved using numerous IPs and virtual PCs to access music sites with multiple accounts, effectively bypassing the systems intended to block these activities. While the issue is not new, it greatly diminishes the image of the K-pop industry and its artists. There's also the problem of everything becoming too polished and rehearsed, even when it doesn't necessarily have to be. The only explanation for this could be the fact that idols get hate for even the smallest of things, but it's sad to see the change in everything. Let's take as an example dance practice videos. Back then, even though these videos were mostly there to show off the choreography, it was obvious that idols were having fun with it. In the past, idols would practice in everyday clothes, often without makeup, and the filming was simple with a stable camera and without any special effects or dynamic zooms or movements. This setup lent an authentic feel to their dance practices, since it even caught minor mistakes, which made the idols feel real and more human. The sense of authenticity was increased by idols not acknowledging the camera, instead focusing on the reflections in the mirror as if genuinely practicing. It felt as though someone had casually decided to capture the moment, giving a more human and spontaneous impression. Recently, dance practice videos are produced with professional stage lighting, strategic camera angles, and coordinated outfits. The idols also wear makeup, making the videos feel more like polished music show performances rather than casual practice sessions to show the choreography. The same goes for the relay dance videos that groups and soloists do as part of promotions. Nowadays, relay dances are much more polished and professional, as members always perform their own parts and the other members stand by their sides to enhance the choreography. What's clear though is that these sessions involve a lot of rehearsal and preparation, which wasn't always the case. Relay dances used to be fun and chaotic, and the fans got a chance to see the members perform the other members' parts in the choreography. However, looking at a ridiculous scandal that SF9's Dawon got into, it makes sense why idols would be careful with what they do. Back in 2020, when the group was promoting Summer Breeze, Dawon was called lazy and insincere since he hadn't taken the whole thing seriously. It came to a point that he had to make a public apology on Instagram livestream and even promised to do better in the future just because he was goofing off with the members. Lastly, let's discuss how the industry has overall changed because of social media, mainly TikTok. This is a phenomenon that's happening all over the world, not just in Korea. A notable change is the shortening of songs, which shows just how much influence the platform has on music trends. Actually, many artists have voiced concerns about their label's pressure to produce music tailored for social media, often focusing on catchy parts or potential for viral dance challenges. There's another theory that songs are getting shorter because people's attention spans are shorter too, so songs need to grab listeners quickly or they'll just skip to the next one. Another argument to take into consideration is that streaming platforms pay artists only if a song is listened to for at least 30 seconds, so shorter songs can earn more money because listeners reach the catchy parts faster. Plus, people tend to play shorter songs more often, which benefits the artists and the labels. Choreographies are also getting easier just because companies hope that certain parts will turn into trends. An official said, It is true that dance challenges became essential as soon as an album was released. As a result, there has been a tendency to focus more on point choreography rather than singing while producing music. However, not many people consider just how tired idols are of these challenges. Sure, it's great to see idols interact for a TikTok video without them worrying about dating rumors, but the truth behind these videos makes us appreciate how hard they work for everything. Chico, who started the TikTok challenges and made them a trend, explained what idols have to do just to get a video with another idol. He said, "Usually, singers have to rest or practice in the waiting room during breaks, but these days, they have to meet colleagues during that time because of the dance challenge and know each other's choreography." Even Red Velvet's Seunghan called the whole thing excessive and said that companies should think of other ways to promote music. Shorter songs and easier choreography make the music industry feel very lazy and uninspiring, which is a depressing contrast to how everything used to be. Considering the prioritization of profit over artistry and quality music by money-driven companies, it unfortunately appears impossible that the situation will improve in the future. After seeing so many downfalls back to back, it's clear the industry is changing faster than anyone expected. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more deep dives like this.